Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Saints are still looking for a head coach, and they're getting closer. If for no other reason, it's a new day. So another day has certainly brought you closer to the day that you're going to name a coach. And somebody's going to take this job because, as Mickey Loomis told us, it's one of 32. That's why it's a good job, because it's a job. Which in and of itself is indicative of why this is a bad job when you have nothing else to sell. But a lot of people are reacting to the decision that Mike McCarthy made, or that was reported on Tuesday night, that Mike McCarthy would withdraw from consideration for the Saints job, that being the only remaining job, of course, that Mike McCarthy would withdraw from the Saints job and sit out the 2025 season and then re-enter the market in 2026. It is worth noting that's exactly what Mike McCarthy did when he was fired in Green Bay. He was fired in Green Bay in 2018. He sat out 2019 and then jumped back in as Jason Garrett's replacement in Dallas in 2020. So Mike McCarthy nationally is a bigger story here because he's the guy that was a Super Bowl winning coach for the Packers and then coached the Cowboys. So all the national talking heads are talking about this more from the McCarthy perspective and less from the Saints perspective. But you look, Harry Douglas, the guy who played a long time in the NFL, here's what he had to say about Mike McCarthy withdrawing from Saints consideration.
It's not a bad thing, right? If you sit out a year, gather your thoughts, and hope for a better opening to come up so you can also have a better interview with whatever respected team in the future. And when I'm looking at teams, Freddie, that could potentially come open next season, hey, Mike McDaniel, if the Miami Dolphins can't, get on their horse, that job might be open.
Okay.
When I look at Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts, if you can't seem to get Anthony Richardson going and guys to play better down the stretch when you still have an open window like they did in 2024. One more I have is the New York Giants. If Brian Daboll and company, if those guys can't get the ship moving in a different direction and in a positive and promising direction, then that's another job that could potentially be open.
Look at the direction he took that conversation. Sometimes it's good and beneficial to hear people outside of this ecosystem give a perspective, because sometimes you'd call that third-party validation, right? It's one thing if you or I say it. It's different if someone from outside, from a different perspective, is saying the same thing. But Harry was talking about looking at it from Mike McCarthy's lens, but saying, wait for a better job. I mean, Miami, Indy, Giants could all be open next year. Those would all be better jobs than New Orleans. He's right. And that's the problem New Orleans is running into. I mean, you look at Miami. What if Miami does come open next year? Okay, we got Tua. I understand Tua's got concussion issues, and we'll see what that means. And Miami was, by the way, the oldest roster in the NFL this year. But you do have a young franchise quarterback, and you've got a much better cap situation than the Saints do, as we know. Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, I mean, look, Anthony Richardson may not be the guy, but you still have a guy who is a highly thought of quarterback that was the fourth pick in the draft. The Giants. I would assume the Giants are going to go draft the Daniel Jones replacement this year in the draft. You got a young guy like Malik Neighbors. So bottom line is all these places are better opportunities than New Orleans, which is kind of what we've talked about here for months. And at the sound of being redundant, this was always going to be the problem. We ran through that exercise where I played the role of Ben Johnson and Muse was Ben Johnson's agent. It's like, sell me on all the jobs. And we went through everything, the quarterback situation, the ownership situation, cap, draft capital, age of the roster, everything. And the Saints were, of the jobs we thought that were open or would come open, the Saints were the worst job, and it's manifesting. It's playing out. I mean, your top choice was Aaron Glenn. He picked another team. The top guy in the market, Ben Johnson, didn't even give you an interview. Aaron Glenn picked somebody else. Joe Brady said, I'm good, I'm going to stay in Buffalo. Cliff Kingsbury said, I'm good, I'm going to stay in Washington. I mean, Mike McCarthy, when you look at the McCarthy news, I know there's two ways to look at that. I should say there is two ways to look at that. One is he didn't want your job, wants to wait next year for something better, or he wasn't going to get the job. And that happens often, where if a team isn't going to hire a certain candidate, they tell the guy, hey, you're not getting this job. So publicly they can say, I'm withdrawing. It allows them to save face. Okay, that's fine. The other part of that, too, is, if you're Mike McCarthy, you are kind of being strung along a little bit here. It's like, do you ever watch the show Shark Tank? Have you ever seen that? I love that show, if you've ever watched it. It's these business people that are negotiating if they're going to buy equity into a company as an investor. But sometimes what will happen in that show is, like, the first shark will make an offer. And, I mean, here you have this person that's a super wealthy, successful business person that's made an offer to buy equity in this company. And that person's saying, it's a bird in hand, but what if someone has a better offer? So they're like, I'm going to go listen to everybody else. Well, that first person that made the offer sometimes gets ticked and is like, you know what? I'm out. Never mind. I mean, I made you an offer, and now you're going to go listen to other people. Maybe that's where Mike McCarthy was. Going like, listen, I'm interested in the job. I'm a Super Bowl winning coach. I've won 60% of my games in my career. I just had Dallas in the playoffs. I've been in the playoffs 11 times. And you want to wait and see if there's somebody better among guys that have never been a coach before? I'm good. I'll wait for a better opportunity next year. Like, maybe that's where it was with Mike McCarthy. I don't know. I mean, in time, I'm sure, as time goes on, all these guys end up telling their story. So we'll see what ultimately happened here. But the bottom line is it's another negative situation for the Saints because you have another viable candidate that, for whatever reason, has withdrawn. So if you're New Orleans, this is what you're down to. You're down to Kellen Moore, who wasn't on anybody's radar when this thing started. I mean, the initial odds about a month ago, a little more than a month ago, but middle of December, there were odds posted on who would be the next Saints coach. There were 16 candidates listed. Kellen Moore wasn't one of the 16. But it's Kellen Moore, it's retaining Darren Rizzi, and then it's Anthony Weaver and Mike Kafka. That's your list. Like, it's going to be one of those four guys. I mean, unless if there's a candidate none of us foresee that maybe pops up here late in the process, which, I mean, I don't know that I see that happening. It sounds like, you were waiting to interview Joe Brady. That's not going to happen. You're waiting to interview Cliff Kingsbury. That's not going to happen. You were supposed to interview Mike McCarthy this week. That's not going to happen. So you've done all your interviews. I mean, you've had 4 in-person interviews. It's going to be one of these guys. I mean, is it Kellen Moore? I mean, if it is, it's a young guy, offensive-minded guy. He checks some boxes. But I don't think that's the type of hire that's going to make people super pumped thinking, yep, you found the guy that's going to transform this organization. And in fairness, I don't know that many people thought that about Sean Payton in 2006. And it worked. Maybe it could work with Kellen Moore. Maybe not. But it is certainly, it stings to see another viable candidate scratched off the list. Because what's left right now is not a very impressive list. It's not something that should instill a lot of confidence for the New Orleans Saints moving forward. And I'll continue to reiterate it for those that haven't heard me say it. I've been saying this for about 2 weeks now. And you're starting to hear this refrain a lot more from people. But we've been saying it here for about 2 weeks. I think your best option is to retain Darren Rizzi for a year. Now, you're not going to tell him you're retaining him for a year. Because if he comes here and he's awesome, great. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I think you're going to stink next year. But you retain Darren Rizzi, and a year from now, when your cap situation is a much better spot, after you tank, you're going to have a top 5 pick and a deep quarterback draft class to go draft your franchise. Some of those aging contracts are going to roll off of your roster, and you're a much more attractive job a year from now than you are right now. And then you go hire Joe Brady or whoever is at Ben Johnson, at or near the top of the list, because you are a more attractive destination where you can have success. You're just not right now. The market is speaking. All of these candidates that are not willing to take your job, the market is speaking. You are not an attractive spot, but you got to hire somebody. So are you playing for the short term or are you playing for the long term? Something we'll find out with Gumsmack and Mickey here pretty soon. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.